It's a tight race today between Walt Disney Animation Studios and Pixar Studios, which is also owned by Disney. So surely it's anyone's game. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Sandbox. I have been wanting to make this video for a very long time, being the big animation fan that I am. Try saying that 10 times fast. Big animation fan that I am, big animation fan that I am. Okay, I guess it's not that hard. I am constantly asking, who makes the best animated films? There are a lot of greats out there. Walt Disney Studios, Pixar, DreamWorks, and I have ranked a lot of their films, but I have never actually put them up against each other. And so that all changes today with the first video in my Animation Showdown series. This is round one between Walt Disney Animation Studios and Pixar Studios, and depending on how well this video performs, round two will be coming shortly. How this works is I'll be choosing 3 different films from each studio's roster and pinning them up against one another, judging them on a few key factors: the story, the characters, the visuals, the music, and the more subjective component, how rewatchable the film is. The films I've chosen today will be going up against their counterpart based on similar story premises. In other words, each film within each competition can be summarized with the same sentence. This will all make more sense once we dive in, but before we do, drop your choices in the comments below and let me know which ones you think are the best. You can always change your votes later if I just so happen to change your mind. So with that said, let's get started with competition 1, which consists of Disney's Raya and the Last Dragon and Pixar's Onward. Taking place in a fantastical landscape that is home to dragons, our protagonists must venture across their magical world in search of a magical gem that can bring back their father. But let's take a closer look at these two stories and see how they were each executed. Raya's story is a tragedy of epic proportions with high stakes reminiscent of Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. Exploring the fallout of the shattered dragon gem and the re-emergence of the Droon, who turn every living creature into stone, Raya and the Last Dragon invokes big emotions as it tells a story of hope, revenge, and trust. Living in harmony with people of different backgrounds and motives is never easy, but being the first person to take that first trusting step can be even harder. Overall, I was really impressed by Raya and Disney's approach to such an awesome story about division and trust, especially during such turbulent and hostile times. The story's pacing is phenomenal, the magic is simple yet fun, and the story beats set up such a wonderful and emotionally powerful ending. The action and its choreography, as well as the humor, are also worth noting, as they really help bring a unique tone to this film and make it highly rewatchable for me.
Also, you broke the gem!
I still have a big chunk of it, though.
Is that supposed to make me feel better? If you lost a puppy and I said, well, we still have a big chunk of it, would that make you feel better?
Now, I will say that the lesson of trust that it tries so hard to push is a great lesson, but there are times where it feels overly forced and quite annoying. A subtler approach would have, in my opinion, made the ending hit even harder. Telling the audience the importance of trust every 5 minutes makes it quite obvious what Raya will choose in the end. Another minor setback for the story that I want to touch on here is a specific scene towards the end where Namaari says Raya is just as much to blame for Sisu's death as she is, which I just found ludicrous. Whether it was due to my emotions at the time or not, I still don't quite understand Namaari's mindset here, and the scene is guilty of taking me out of the film.
Do whatever you want. But you're as much to blame for Sisu's death as I am.
Like, I get where they're going for here, Namaari's like, hey, I didn't trust you, Raya, but, you also didn't trust me, so I shot Sisu. Your fault. What? But moving on to Onward, Pixar's approach is a much smaller scale story with a much closer lens on character. Ian and Barley Lightfoot are what drive this film, focusing on brotherly and fatherly love and how similar those loves can actually be. Their character dynamic is a special one, but sticking to the story here, I find this one to be an incredibly fun and hilarious journey with solid pacing and decent action. I will say that the world and magic can feel mundane at times, not blowing me away personally, and yet I'd be lying if I said I didn't want to see more of it. Now, the parts with Ian's notebook can feel in your face with setting up Ian's character and his arc for the film. Similarly to Raya and its issue with reminding us about trust, Onward isn't all that subtle with what the story and Ian's development will be over the next 90 minutes. However, I will admit that Pixar was a tad more subtle than Disney here. These films both have a similar feel to them, with key scenes building up our characters as they are pushed closer to the climax and the big lesson reveal. Ian learns a lesson and a magical spell with each new challenge on his journey to Raven's Point, gathering a memory along the way, and Raya obtains another piece to the Dragon Gem, while Sisu gains a new power, learning to trust more and more people along the way, as different as they may be. I love both of these stories, and I'll admit that this is the component and the matchup that I struggle the most with, and in the end, it's impossible for me to say that either executes its specific approach better than the other, and so I'm awarding each with an A for this category. Moving on and speeding things up, let's address the character component. Raya offers a solid cast of characters that fit their tropes quite well. Raya is probably one of my favorite princess characters, as she feels very different from the rest, probably due to her having a hand in helping to break the world. I love her background and her sidekick animal friend even more. Tuk Tuk, you're one of the best, bud. Sisu is another great character here who, while annoying at times, adds a lot of life to this film. And the Droon are a scary aspect to the world, but they feel more like a part of the world than characters. Namari is the real villain here, and I think she fits the role very well. However, Onward has the edge for me with its stupendously strong dynamic duo of Ian and Barley. Tom Holland and Chris Pratt are amazing here, and it's largely Pratt's performance and humor that keeps me coming back to this film.
I'm just saying, sprites used to fly around spreading delight. That's a good thing.
Sprites can't fly.
Well, your wings don't work because you stopped using them.
You calling me lazy?
That's not to say that Kelly Mary Tran and Awkwafina don't do fantastic jobs as Raya and Sisu. They do, but there's something special about Onward's characters for me. The yin-yang relationship of Barley pushing Ian, teaching him, and giving him confidence is such a strong emotional journey that comes together so beautifully in the end for me. For characters, I'm giving Raya a B+ and Onward an A. The very forced and heavy-handed arc of Raya learning to trust is largely what keeps that one a little bit back for me. Now, as for visuals, both are fantastic, as Disney and Pixar are both fantastic studios with top-of-the-line artists. That said though, Onward did feel pretty tame for a Pixar production. The world is simple and not heavily explored, and the magic felt mediocre to me with little originality that you'd typically expect from Pixar. However, the fantastical world gone modern did have some awesome details to it, and when they leaned into those fantasy tropes, I found myself fully immersed into the world. But as for this component, I think Raya is the clear winner. It just feels more epic, exploring different biomes with each new kingdom that Raya traverses to, utilizing different visual styles for its storytelling, and displaying a unique magic system for Sisu. For me, I think Raya deserves an A, and Onward a close A-. Moving on to the score for these two movies, again, I think Raya has the edge here. I can't play any of the music without being copyright striked, but give them each a listen and be the judge for yourself. Music is extremely subjective, but I think it's safe to say that Raya is just very well done. The only reason I'm not giving it a solid A is that I think it could have leaned more into the uniqueness of each kingdom by having a different soundtrack depending on where they were at any given moment. Tail would have had a very different sound than Spine, for example. I believe each kingdom had its own theme music, but if Disney had gone one step further, I think it really would have elevated the film. But moving on to the final component, let's talk about the rewatchability for each of these films. For me personally, this is a close race. Raya is one I would happily watch when I'm in the mood for an epic fantasy animation with fun characters and awesome action. And Onward is one I'd watch for a more emotional story with a lot of humor. As I said before, Chris Pratt's Barley is what keeps me coming back and makes Onward so dang rewatchable. Plus, its killer ending always gives me goosebumps and brings me to tears. So as of right now, after having rewatched these recently, I think Onward is the one that I would want to put on right now if I had to choose between the two. Raya's forced lesson of trust really is distracting and annoying for me, but that's just my personal taste. Putting together the final tally, this was a very, very close race, the closest one in this round, but Onward squeaks through with the win, awarding Pixar with the first point. For the next competition, we are moving away from fantastical lands and into fantastical seas with Disney's Moana and Pixar's Luca. Land and sea both have their perks, but our protagonists wish to explore the one that they're forbidden to see by their parents. Luckily, with the help of a rebellious grandma, they embark on a dangerous journey accompanied by an obnoxiously arrogant friend to discover who they truly are. As far as stories go, considering pacing, humor, action, and the overall plot, I'd say these are both fairly close. They're both quite simple. One is a coming-of-age story for an Italian sea monster, and the other is a simple voyage with a demigod. Simple, right? But in all seriousness, they both have solid humor and great pacing, though Moana has a clear edge with the action in the film, thanks to Maui and various monsters. I personally find Moana to be funnier and have a more consequential story as well. Moana feels like everything has a purpose, every character, every scene is pushing us closer to a fantastic ending. While Luca feels more loose until the final 30 minutes where it really starts pushing Luca to find his true self. So this is quite a subjective component here, but today I'm going to give Luca a B+ and Moana an A. Next up, the visuals. These are both incredible works of art for the most part. I think Moana is breathtaking at times and has a solid use of color to invoke various emotions. The scenery while out on the ocean feels a bit standard to me, but the stylish songs and flashbacks along with Maui's tattoos and the various sea monsters all more than make up for that. Luca, on the other hand, has some stylish scenes as well, with Luca's daydreams and the underwater world filled with sea monsters. But I will say that ever since the first trailer for Luca, I have not really felt like it belongs in Pixar's reel. It has this glossy look that feels more like something from Blue Sky Studios. I'm also not a fan of the final design for Luca. Alberto is easily the more interesting character, both on paper and visually, and so the title character feels more like a side character in his own story, which I don't find to be a good thing. That said, I love the feelings of summer that Luca invokes, and it sets the scene for a coming-of-age story quite nicely overall. For visuals, I'm going to give Moana another A, and Luca an A-. Next up, the music, and I don't think it'll surprise anyone when I award Moana with an A+, and Luca with a still strong but lower A-. When Luca leans into the Italian aspects musically, I think that's when the film is at its best, but aside from those moments, the soundtrack didn't blow me away except for maybe the main theme. But moving on to the characters, again, Luca felt weird given that Alberto, albeit a main character, felt more like the main character. I mean, who's the one that got a sequel short? Luca's arc doesn't really become more apparent until the final 30 minutes or so, after he learns more about Julia's school and way of living. But that said, I do enjoy Luca's arc, especially on rewatch, and Alberto really comes around in the end to hit those emotional beats. But as for Moana, I think Reverse Ariel is a great addition to the princess catalog, and Maui is just great fun. Their dynamic pushes this film along extremely well, leaving little room for boredom. I thought Moana was fully fleshed out and had great lessons to learn, and personally, I would love to see a sequel short with Maui focusing on that time between when he left Moana after the initial loss against Aka and his return to help Moana in the end. His arc of learning that he's more than just a hero and more than just his hook is well done, but something I could still see more of. As for my scores, I'm going to give Moana an A- and Luca a B+. Moana has kind of swept away Luca here, which does not make Luca a bad film at all, and I don't want to harp on anyone's opinions if you think that Luca is the better film, but I do believe that Moana executed its similar premise a little bit better. As far as rewatchability goes, I don't think it's a surprise that based on its humor, action, stronger character dynamic, and of course the music, Moana is deserving of a higher grade here as well. Luca is easily a film that I would happily rewatch during the summer, but Moana is one that I could turn on at any time and know that I will enjoy. But again, I want to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Did I get any of these matchups wrong in your opinion? Your feedback will surely help me with round 2. But moving on and into the final competition of round 1, I have Disney's The Princess and the Frog and Pixar's Soul. Man, Pixar sure does love their one-word titles lately. Both of these films highlight the personal struggles of POC characters who share a deep appreciation for the art, so much so that their dedication and hyper-focus turns into a form of depression and forces them to miss out on the other joys of life. That is until they meet an intolerable soul from another world who encourages them to lighten up. Now, digging a little deeper here, I'd say that Princess and the Frog is well deserving of an A for its story execution. It has solid pacing as well as stakes, some great humor as well, and even some nifty action and horror sequences, which you all know I'm a sucker for. Overall, it's a great story of love, light versus dark, work ethic and commitment, and learning to have fun as well. I oftentimes have to remind myself that this is a children's film when considering everything that this story offers. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel the same way about Soul. While a bit slower of a burn and more mature story, Soul does a great job at capturing the meaning of life without explicitly saying it, making your own. Now, both of these films have their faults, that being that sometimes going from one scene to the next can have a lackadaisical, random feel to it. Princess and the Frog feels like sometimes it's just trying to set up the next musical number, and Soul is just setting up the next piece of the puzzle to the big lesson in the end. But that said, I still think these are both deserving of an A for this category. Moving on to the character component, I would not say that either of these are prime examples of either studio at their best, but they still offer some fantastic characters. Tiana is one of my all-time personal favorite princesses, and Naveen and Ray have some great character arcs for a simple film. Louis is also a great comedy relief character who always gets a chuckle out of me.
Why don't you?
Oh, I tried once. It didn't end well.
Soul, on the other hand, is very focused on Joe Gardner and 22. Joe isn't someone I immediately connected with, but on each subsequent rewatch, I understand him a little bit more. He is someone I can certainly sympathize with, and the lesson he learns is one I feel that I need to be reminded of time and time again as I grow older. 22 is also a standout. Depending on my mood when watching, she either really annoys me or I really feel for her.
I'm gonna make you wish you never died.
Most people wish that, 22.
So as for the scores, for Princess and the Frog, I'm giving them an A- here, and Soul a B+. But moving on to the visuals, I don't think it's a surprise that Soul clinches the win here with an A+. I feel like Pixar went above and beyond with this one, offering different styles throughout the film and conceptualizing their own version of an afterlife and a before life. But The Princess and the Frog is no loser here either, as I'm awarding them with an A. They are more limited by their 2D animation style, and even then, I still feel like this film fully explores its medium. The characterization is great, and its daydream style adds another layer to its storytelling. Next up is the music, which I think is fair to say they both tie with an A+. Both are remarkable, and for completely different reasons. Soul is sophisticated and complicated, and its soundtrack is something I will never fully understand, even with my minimal years of schooling in piano theory. I love jazz, and hearing this soundtrack when it just lets loose and has fun is truly amazing. The Princess and the Frog, on the other hand, is more musical pop, but this soundtrack never fails to get stuck in my head after I rewatch it, and its use of leitmotifs throughout the film, especially with Evangeline, is very well crafted. But moving on to the final component, and I believe the tiebreaker, the rewatchability factor. Similar to Raya vs. Onward, this matchup certainly depends on my current mood. Soul is a real thinker. Sure, it has some fun moments as well as that adventure aspect that makes it a Pixar film comes out, but its music and deep themes of life and death certainly make it a more somber film. Princess and the Frog, on the other hand, is more simplistic. It's filled with great sing-along songs, more lighthearted characters, and some voodoo magic that makes your skin crawl. And in all honesty, that is more my speed most of the time. That's not to say I don't like thinkers like Soul, but that's a movie I can only watch once every couple of years, whereas Princess and the Frog is one I could watch multiple times per year and never get sick of it. So in the end, Princess and the Frog just barely nabs the win, which means that Walt Disney Animation Studios is our winner for round 1. But let me know down in the comments below if you agree or if you think that I got one of these matchups wrong. I would love to hear your thoughts, and I would also love to hear your ideas for more film matchups. It doesn't have to be Disney or Pixar. There are tons of great studios with awesome films such as DreamWorks, Sony, Blue Sky Studios, rest in peace, heck, even Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network. Let me know your ideas down in the comments below, and remember, the only rule is that you have to be able to summarize each plot with the same sentence or two. But that's it for this round. I hope to see you all in round 2. I got some big movies planned for that one, and if you would like to know what they are before the video drops, don't forget to follow me on Instagram for all of the sneak peeks. But as for now, that's it from me. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I will see you all next time.
Now what kind of chucklehead toy y'all to go this away?
I found a stick!